Welcome back, guys, to another glorious tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to be finishing up, and we're going to set up our connection and build our listener. And so what we did last time is we went ahead and printed out, we initialized our server socket, we then accepted any incoming socket and also used their socket to connect backwards to, and then we opened up two streams, an input stream and an output stream, to read and write to, and we cleaned up our output stream. Then we went ahead and started listening to the user. This line in particular may seem a bit confusing to you, so I'll go over it in a sec, maybe this tutorial actually. And so then we said while it's connected, we wanted to get input from the user and send it to our the one who is connected to us, and then we're going to let it sleep for 20 seconds. Now, I taught you about threading, and to create a thread, you say thread equals new thread, and then you go new, and then whatever, my thread, I think I called it. Yeah, I can see it over in the left. And so what we're doing here is, because it's static, we actually have to invoke an instance of PTP client. I haven't went over static before, so I'm not going to go too far in depth, but we're just saying to create an instance of that. And the only thing we're not doing is and then you'd go the dot start. Now, what I did is I took a shortcut, and instead of setting this, so because we're only going to use this once, we're not actually going to need to know the thread name. So I just went ahead and took a shortcut and went like that. I hope that made a little sense. I'll be covering how to refactor later too in a later tutorial, but for now let's continue on. So I'm going to go ahead and copy all this, and I'm going to into here, and I'm going to say enter IP address, then port, and then I'm going to give them a small little example like 192.168.1.1, and then 2231. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to change this to socket equals, or actually we're going to create a string array, and we're going to learn a new string method. So I'm going to say IP equals, and then say x dot next line. And now you're probably saying, but Juju, there isn't, this doesn't return an array. Well, that's true, but when we call it, we can go ahead and use a string method on it, seeming it is itself a string. And as Java's cleverly suggested, we can do split. And what split does, it allows us to, so if, let's say they were to enter this string, we would be able to split it by this, or even a space if we put that as the example, and it will separate this as the first value and this as the second. Same could be done if we wanted to split it by the dot, and we would get this as a value, this as our first, second value, this as our third, this as our fourth, or this as therefore, assuming we would only split it by spaces. So that's a split, and then we're going to say new socket, and we're going to set this to S, and we're going to say int, or just say port equals, and we're going to go ahead and get the integer value. I think I've went over parsing, so I'm not going to go over it. And we're going to get the integer value of this string. And because they will be entering it as one entire string, we need to make sure that it is in fact integer. And then let's go ahead and continue. Let's go ahead and type that IP 0 as our main address. Whoops. And then let's go ahead and say port at the end. Whoops, removed a bracket by accident. Alright, and now we're not going to listen. We do need our streams, so, but we first want to say, if they do enter, we want to say right here, system.out.print line tempting connection. Alright, and then if it did succeed, I'm going to go ahead and print out that voila. So now that we have setting up streams, same as before, and then it will clean up their part of this stream, and it will go ahead and again and listen to the user. So this is the user, and so let's go ahead and do that. So what we're going to need in here is, if you haven't noticed, we can't go ahead and say throws exception. And so because we're actually overriding this method here. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and build our try and catch again. That took a lot to say. Anyways. So let's go ahead and first say try, just wrap it in one big try, and catch any exceptions that occur. And if one does occur, we want it to just error out error occurred while listening. There we go. And in here we're going to go while s dot is connected, and so while the socket is still connected, we'll go ahead and say string input equals input stream dot read UTF. And the reason why I went ahead and put this in a separate variable is this, as you can see here also, I went ahead and put input in a separate variable and wrote to the output stream, and I'm also reading from the input stream and storing it in a variable, is because from previous experience when I've tried this, it always error if I didn't put it in a variable, and so I'm just doing this as a safety precaution. And okay, so just so you guys know, so you just guys aren't like, hey, why is he not using a variable here, but he goes ahead and uses a variable there. So just to be safe, I went ahead and used a variable. Alright, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to print out what they're saying. So I'm just going to type maybe user says, and then seems legit, and then let's go ahead and do input dot, oh no, thread dot sleep, and let it sleep for 20 seconds. And oh, I forgot to extend input, that's why. That would have been an awkward case. How are we doing for time? Alright, we're out for time, so in the next tutorial I'm going to go over everything briefly, and we're going to do a test run with this. So this was Juju, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial.